Hello, everyone. Today I want to tell you a story about a subject that I have disliked for years. And no, this is not one of those stories where I suddenly discovered my hidden passion and fell in love with it. No, that did not happen at all. I still don't like mathematics. In fact, if you asked me today whether I would voluntarily spend my free time solving mathematical problems, the answer would still be no. But a few days ago, I finished my last A level exam, my oral mathematics exam, and I got a 2. For anyone outside Germany, that's the second best grade you can get. And while that might not sound extraordinary to everyone, for me it means a lot more than a number on a piece of paper. Because mathematics has been one of the biggest sources of frustration in my entire school career. Not because I was incapable of understanding it or because I never tried, but because my brain seemed to reject the subject from the very beginning. Today, I want to talk about that experience. And that's not only for people who struggle with mathematics, but for anyone who has ever felt like their own mind was working against them. Because that's what this often felt like a fight between what I wanted to do and what my brain wanted to do. And for years, I didn't understand why. And I think my relationship with mathematics became difficult very early because when I was younger, I never really connected with the subject. And when I say that, I don't really mean, oh, it wasn't my favorite class. No, that was not it. I mean that I generally never developed any natural interest in it, I guess. Some people see equations and become curious. Some people, I don't know, enjoy logical puzzles. And some people might enjoy numbers in general. But I wasn't one of those people. No. For me, mathematics often felt, well, disconnected from the things I cared about. I was always much more interested in creative things, ideas, projects, music, stories, creating things, thinking about things that I want to create. But mathematics felt like a completely different language. And unfortunately, I don't think it was always taught to me in a way that helped. Sometimes I had the feeling that the goal wasn't to make me interested, but that the goal was simply to make me perform, to push information into my head and hope it stayed there. And if it didn't stay there, then the assumption was that I wasn't trying hard enough. Over time, mathematics became associated with pressure, not curiosity, pressure. And that's a very different feeling. And there's this one memory that stayed with me forever. When I was still young, a teacher told my mother that she did not think I would ever be able to do my A levels. Now, to be fair, teachers are human, alright? They don't know the future. They make mistakes. They're humans too. And I don't think it's useful to spend, years blaming one person, but here's the thing. Even when a prediction is wrong, it can still leave a mark, and especially when you're young. Especially when you're still trying to figure out who you are. And I think part of me carried that memory for years. Not every day, not consciously, but somewhere in the background. And now, years later, I find it almost funny because the student who supposedly wasn't gonna make it to the A levels was sitting in an oral exam for the subject mathematics, and that alone already proved the prediction wrong before I even got my grade. But yeah, for years I thought my problem was simple. I thought I had I hate mathematics. I thought I hate mathematics, and honestly, that part is true. I still don't like the subject. But over time, I realized that that wasn't the whole story, because there are lots of things I don't enjoy, and yet I can still do them. The strange thing about mathematics was that it felt different. Whenever I sat down to study, something weird happened. Something really weird. I would genuinely want to learn. Like, I wanted to sit down and learn because I knew the exam mattered. I knew I needed to prepare. I knew avoiding it would not help. And yet my attention constantly drifted away. And not necessarily to exciting things, and that's the weird part. People imagine distraction as, oh, I'd rather play video games, or I'd rather watch YouTube, but that's not what happened. Sometimes my brain would start thinking about something completely random. A conversation, something I saw outside, or a memory, something my grandmother said, literally anything. The thoughts often weren't even important, but somehow they seemed more attractive than the mathematical problem in front of me. And that drove me crazy. Oh boy, and if I say crazy, I was angry, sad, like I've never had this many emotions in the same moment. Like, it was disgusting. And when I say that it drove me crazy, I mean because I wasn't choosing those thoughts. They just appeared, and I couldn't do anything against them. And the following thing I'm gonna explain is the hardest thing to explain. And I think some listeners will understand it immediately, while others won't understand it at all. Look, imagine wanting something, genuinely wanting it, and then being unable to get your own brain to cooperate. And yeah, that's what mathematics often felt like. I wanted to learn. My brain wanted to leave. I wanted to focus. My brain wanted to think about literally anything else. I wanted to understand. My brain wanted to check out. And after enough hours of this, you start asking yourself difficult questions. Why is this so hard? Why do other people seem to do this more easily? Why can I focus on things I enjoy for hours but struggle with this? What is wrong with me? And honestly, those questions hurt. Because after a while, you stop being frustrated with the subject. You start being frustrated with yourself. And this is the mistake I made for years. For a long time, I interpreted every bad study session as evidence that I wasn't doing enough, that I wasn't disciplined enough, that I wasn't focused enough, that I wasn't trying hard enough. But looking back, I think that interpretation was incomplete. Like, that interpretation was incomplete because I was trying. I was genuinely trying. The problem wasn't that I never showed up. The problem was that showing up required so much more energy than it seemed to require for other people. And there's an important difference between I don't care and I care but I'm struggling. And for years I mixed those two things together. And this is the thing that actually finally helped. Because this one thing I learned is that understanding and repetition are not enemies. I needed both. I'm the kind of person who wants to know, why does this work? Why do we use this method? Why not another method? And what is actually happening? But school doesn't only reward understanding, it also rewards repetition. And mostly it only rewards repetition. Because if you really think about it, you learn the stuff you learn for the exam, but afterwards you're gonna forget it. I'm almost 100% sure. Like, I only know few things I've actually learned for an exam after the exam. Like, it's always the same. And school also rewards repetition. That's just what I wanted to say. Like, practice, pattern recognition, procedures, like all of these things, they get rewarded, but they won't get you nowhere afterwards. So eventually, I stopped trying to choose one or the other. I accepted that I needed both. I needed enough understanding to make sense of the topic and enough repetition to survive the exam. And well, then the exam came. Eventually, the day arrived. The oral mathematics exam. The thing I had worried about for months. And keep in mind here, I've been learning for this exam for over a month. That is so much time, and every day I spent at least 3 to 4 hours learning this subject where I'm constantly, like literally every minute, thinking about how I do not want to do this. I do not want to waste my time, even though it's not wasting, with this subject. And yeah, and this thing caused so much frustration, so much doubt, so many hours of preparation. And here's the funny thing. When the moment finally came, there was nothing left to do except trust the work I had already done. Not perfect work, not magical work, not the work of someone who loved mathematics, just the work of someone who kept showing up again and again and again, even when it was frustrating, even when it felt pointless, even when I wanted to do something else. And then came the result. A B, which is a 2 in German grade. The second best grade. And honestly, the grade itself wasn't even the best part. The best part was realizing that I had beaten something much bigger than an exam. I had proven to myself that difficulty does not automatically mean impossibility. I had proven that disliking a subject does not automatically mean failing it. I had proven that progress is possible even when motivation isn't perfect, and that realization is worth much more than the number itself. And if you're listening to this and you're struggling with a subject right now, I want you to know something. Your struggle is real. Your frustration is real. And sometimes people underestimate how exhausting it can be to work on something that your brain simply doesn't enjoy. But don't confuse difficulty with impossibility. Those are not the same thing. I never became a math person. I never fell in love with mathematics. I never woke up one morning and suddenly found it easy, but I still got through it. And maybe that's the lesson. Sometimes success doesn't look like loving the journey. Sometimes success looks like continuing anyway. And of course, there are people who love their journey, but that's just not for all of us. So, I just want to say a quick thank you for listening to this podcast. I hope this brought you something and wasn't a waste of time for you. This has been Jax, and make sure to subscribe if you want to know what's next. Goodbye.